U2 all-in-one block, sizer and AP cutting jig. The U2 all-in-one block is a multifunctional device which is capable of indicating the proper femoral size, from size 1 to size 7, under either anterior reference or posterior reference. It guides the anterior and posterior bone resection through the two cutting slots and allows adjustable external rotation both left and right, with the ability to set the angle from 3 to 7 degrees. All of the functions are accomplished easily by adjusting these three knobs. Sizing the femur starts right after the distal femur resection. Place the U2 all-in-one block against the resected surface of the distal femur, with the posterior feet making contact with the posterior condyles. Then, secure the U2 all-in-one block with the threaded pin through the hole marked with gold color that connects with the posterior feet. Adjust the desired external rotation to be parallel to the transept condylar axis and perpendicular to the white sides line by rotating the central knob with a screwdriver. The marking indicates the degree with reference to the posterior condyles and can be adjusted from 3 to 7 degrees. In this case, left knee 3 degrees would be appropriate. Next, assemble the stylus. First, rotate the stylus handle to unlock position. Then, insert the stylus base onto the socket on top of the all-in-one block. Position the stylus tip so that it just makes contact with the lowest point of the anterior femoral cortex. The femoral component size will now be indicated on the main panel. In the anterior referencing system, if the size indicated is in between two standard sizes, like this case where the size is between 3 and 3.5, the operator may select the smaller one. With the anterior reference, the position of the anterior cutting slot will be fixed by a threaded pin. Then, elevate the posterior slot by adjusting the bottom knob to match the main scale size 3. The figures next to the bottom knob indicate the additional posterior cut to the standard 9mm cutting. In this case, to match size 3, the adjustment is less than 1 mm. Once the size is determined, rotate the upper knob to secure the chosen size and lock the cutting block. Release the stylus. Secure the anterior and posterior slots with the threaded pins. Then, finish the anterior and posterior cuts by using a 1.27mm saw blade. To reduce oscillation displacement, a narrow saw blade is recommended. Drill 2 reference holes for the chamfer cutting jig before removing the all-in-one block. Fix the chosen femoral chamfer cutting jig in the pre-drilled pinholes. Use the threaded pins to enhance the stability and complete the chamfer cuts. In some cases, if the indicator is closer to the larger size, this larger size may be chosen to avoid too much posterior resection. Fix the anterior slot with the threaded pins first. Loosen the fixation pin of the footplate and slide the posterior slot until the size is aligned with the larger one. Then, rotate the upper knob to secure the chosen size. In this case, the posterior cut will be less than 9 millimeters. Release the stylus. Fix the anterior and posterior slots before completing cuts by using a 1.27mm saw blade. Drill 2 reference holes to align the chamfer cutting jig. And perform chamfer cuts. Before the AP cutting, we recommend using the lower point gauge to estimate the cutting volume. In some cases, the posterior cutting is too much and the surgeon will decide to adjust the cutting level slightly. At this time, keep the AP distance locked, loosen the threaded pin that fixes the anterior slot, and adjust the AP cutting level by rotating the bottom knob with the screwdriver to raise or lower the cutting slots. Recheck the cutting volume with the lower point gauge from time to time. Once the AP cutting levels are determined, secure the AP slots with threaded pins and complete the AP cuttings and the chamfer cuttings. While sizing the femur with a posterior referencing system, make sure that the bottom knob indicates 0, which means the 9 mm standard posterior thickness in the prosthesis. Remove the stylus. Then use the lower point gauge to avoid the possibility of anterior notching. Determine the proper size. Lock in the chosen size by rotating the upper knob. Fix the anterior and posterior slots before making cuts by using a 1.27 mm saw blade. Drill 2 reference holes to align the chamfer cutting jig. And perform the chamfer cut. In the posterior referencing system, if anterior notching is a concern, the fine-tune function can elevate the block by distributing the cutting volume between both the anterior and posterior sides. In this case, the posterior cut might be more than 9 mm. During fine-tuning, make sure that the AP cutting distance is locked. Then, adjust the bottom knob to elevate the posterior and anterior cutting slots to the proper position. Check the cutting volume with the lower point gauge. Secure the slots with the threaded pins, and finish the bone resection. During trial reduction, if distal recutting is required, realign the distal femoral cutting guide through the +2 or +4 pinholes and perform the distal femoral resection. Once the distal recut is made, reshaping the chamfer cut is essential. Realign the same size chamfer cutting jig to the same reference holes and make the chamfer cuts. During trowel reduction, if the flexion gap is a concern, the surgeon may decide to downsize the femoral component in some rare situations. In this case, size 4 is lowered to size 3. Realign the anterior cutting slot through the original pinholes. Use long threaded pins to enhance fixation. Rotate the upper knob to unlock the chosen size, and slide the posterior cutting slot to readjust the main panel scale from the original size 4 to match the smaller size 3. Rotate the upper knob to lock in the new chosen size. Secure the posterior cutting slot with threaded pins and redo the posterior cut. If recutting is only to be done at the posterior side, the chamfer reference holes will match the smaller selected size. If both AP cutting levels are changed, new reference holes might need to be created. The U2 all-in-one block is able to assist in multiple tasks, allowing the user to switch anterior or posterior cutting references, select sizes, evaluate and fine-tune the cutting level. The user can adjust the external rotation from 3 to 7 degrees and perform AP femoral cuts of all sizes in one block.